I'm Mark Halperin. And I'm John Heilemann. And with all due respect to Chris Christie, we promise to keep it down tonight.
Two big happy birthdays today, sports fans. Our fearless leader, Thomas Tip Johnson, and Hillary Clinton. And what better way for the latter to celebrate her 68th than topping our rundown tonight? You may have seen on BloombergPolitics.com Mark's utterly compelling magnum opus on why Secretary Clinton is our most likely next president of these United States. The reasons are several, including a strong performance at the fabled Jefferson-Jackson dinner in Des Moines this weekend. And today, Clinton put out a new ad in which she says she'll do everything she can to make sure women are paid the same as men for the same jobs. As of today, Mark, I know your global view about Secretary Clinton's strength, but in this moment, give us the state of the frontrunner's campaign.
Most likely next president, strong against Bernie Sanders, although Bernie Sanders could still topple this whole thing and send the nomination fight into chaos if he beats her in Iowa and New Hampshire or both. But she's got strength there in both those states. And nationally, right now, the Republican Party is not positioning as well for the general election as she is.
I think it's fascinating the extent to which, and we've remarked on this before, but it was even clearer this weekend in Iowa how much this race is going to come down on the Democratic side to Iowa. If Hillary Clinton can win in Iowa, she is on a glide path to the nomination. They can write off New Hampshire because Senator Sanders is a neighboring state. If she loses in Iowa and then he beats her in New Hampshire, it's going to be a much, much more difficult scenario. Now, she will still probably be the favorite, but boy, things could get very, very complicated and difficult then.
One of the points I made in my piece is a lot of Republicans are so deranged by Hillary Clinton. They're so upset by her. They can't see all the strange shit. I heard from a lot of smart Republicans today who said, thanks for writing that piece, because hopefully other people in the party will see. We need to figure out how to get ourselves a nominee who can beat her, because they think she's going to be the nominee of the other party.
She is going to be if she is a general election candidate, the demographic advantages she has, the experience advantages she has, and the possibility that she can get through this primary, this nomination contest, relatively unscathed while Republicans fight for months and months, she could be very formidable, as you say, in a general election.
All right, there once was a front-runner named Jeb, exclamation point, but today he's down to 5% in Iowa. It's according to the latest Bloomberg Politics Des Moines Register Iowa poll. In that poll, he's literally tied with Rand Paul and 2 points below not sure. Over the weekend in South Carolina, Bush seemed to be frustrated and, I'm going to use the cliche, not to be fighting for his political life.
I got a lot of really cool things that I could do other than sit around being miserable, listening to people demonize me and me feeling compelled to demonize them. That is a joke. Elect Trump if you want that.
If Bush is the nominee, that soundbite will come back and people will say, wow, he showed spirit. If he's not the nominee, people are going to say he showed frustration and he showed a little bit being discombobulated. Trying to press the reset button. He's down in Florida, in Texas today, in Houston, meeting with his big donors, his father and his brother. John, what is the state of the Bush campaign today?
It is, if not, I won't go so far as to say it's on life support, but it is reeling, undoubtedly. And I don't think anybody who's a supporter of Jeb Bush's or anybody who works for him looks at that and says that is the kind of Jeb Bush that they want to see or that they thought they would see when he launched his campaign 6 months ago. Big
reporting coming out of Houston that the presentations to the donors, some of it involves saying Marco Rubio is like Obama. Yep. If they can eliminate Marco Rubio, and the Bush folks think he's not been vetted enough, he's not been scrutinized, if they can eliminate Rubio as competition, for all the problems they're having now, they will own the establishment lane. Kasich, Christie trying to compete there. If they can do that, he's right in this contest, regardless of the problems.
Again, though, you and I have seen that so few Republican voters we meet in the early states or anywhere have a lot of enthusiasm for Jeb Bush. And I have to say, the optics of this thing, going back to Houston, I get you got to circle the wagons when you're in trouble. But so much of his trouble is all about the fact that he's a Bush. The optics of running home right into Donald Trump's critique about going back to mommy and daddy. I don't think this looks good for him at all. Okay, I just mentioned Donald Trump. So let's talk about him. Oh, how the mighty have kinda, sorta, ever so slightly fallen. Donald Trump is in second place now in Iowa, and that news may have gotten a little bit under his skin because, as you know, that skin is like an orange peel, except not that thick. Here's a glimpse of Trump's recent media rampage in which he goes after several of his fellow Republican hopefuls, starting with the aforementioned Jeb Bush.
He's losing. He's getting killed. So he's meeting now with mom and dad. No, it's true. He needs counsel.
I like Ben, but he cannot do with trade like I do with trade. I think Ben Carson's a very low energy person. Actually, I think Ben Carson is lower energy than Jeb, if you want to know the truth. Ben doesn't even go to Iowa that much. And he's doing well in Iowa. If you look at Carson, he's very weak on illegal immigration. If you look at Bush, he said they come in for love. If you look at Rubio, he was a member of the Gang of Eight. I mean, he's way down anyway. But this guy was so weak, and then all of a sudden he said, well, maybe I can't do that because he went down. They're all weak on immigration.
So, Mark, we've talked about the two legacy candidates, Donald Trump, the non-legacy candidate. What do you think about where he is right now?
The Trump doubters will say this is the beginning of the end. He's going to start fading in other states. He won't like being behind. This is a test for Trump. He's behind now. He's got to figure out, does he fight in Iowa? If so, how? Look, he hasn't gone on TV with ads. He's not been a great candidate. I've said before, if he went to Iowa now and talked about immigration, jobs, and leadership, I think his numbers might improve. He doesn't have to beat Ben Carson in Iowa to be the nominee, but let's see how he reacts to this first little bit of adversity.
One of the things about Trump is his attacks in the past have seemed, I always thought, very shrewd, very pointed. This has felt a little bit more like indiscriminate flailing, to the point where he's attacking our pollster, Ann Selzer, because of the fact that he didn't like the outcome of the gold standard Des Moines Register Iowa poll with Bloomberg Politics. That to me, I mean, Trump, when he's on his game and driving negative messages, is very powerful. But when he's flailing around and looking like this, I think it looks weaker.
Look, Team Trump still looks at Marco Rubio, Jeb Bush as bigger threats in the end than Rubio and then Carson. And I think, again, you're right. Trump is inefficient over the last 72 hours in his attacks, but he does have a chance now to show people that he can deal with some adversity.
Yes, and you're right. Look, the question is whether Iowa is a harbinger of other things. If he can isolate the damage to Iowa,
not a single other poll that suggests it is.
If he can isolate the damage to Iowa, he can easily survive that.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, we will be right back with Jane O'Meara Sanders, the wife of Bernie Sanders, after this. Three words that describe Senator Sanders. Why is appealing to you? Three words.
Integrity, honesty, and hardworking.
Credible, honest. Seems like he's moral.
Smart, socialist, Jewish.
Amazing, progressive, and new.
Very devoted following.
Not for sale.
That was what we got when we asked voters at the Iowa Jefferson-Jackson dinner on Saturday night to give us three words to describe Senator Bernie Sanders. We'll ask those same questions to a woman who knows him maybe slightly better than those people do, Jane O'Meara Sanders, potential First Lady. It's great to have you here on our set.
Nice to be here,
for your
John.
first ever visit, to With All Due Respect. So let me just start with a really simple, basic question. Tell us about your family.
We've got 4 children and 7 grandchildren, and we love to be with them. That's our favorite thing. And we get back to Vermont to actually just hang out with them. I mean, that no matter what else we're doing, we try to get home at least one night every few weeks.
Can you give what are your 3 words for your husband?
I think integrity is definitely one of them. Caring and honest, loving, wonderful.
You went over.
Yes, I did go over.
Okay. Tell us the story of how you met Cute.
Met
Cute.
We first met. It was strange. When he was running for mayor, I was a community organizer, and the neighborhood organizations that I organized came and met with the then mayor Paquette, and the questions they were asking were being kind of evaded. They weren't quite answered. And so I started to stand up and ask questions, and they said, now you sound like Bernie Sanders. I sat down and I said, who's Bernie Sanders? And they said, I think he's running for mayor as an independent. And I said, let's organize a debate. So we had a debate a couple of weeks later, and I just immediately fell in love with his ideas, and shortly thereafter fell in love with him. So it was wonderful.
Do you remember the very first words you two exchanged?
I think I said, Mr. Sanders, welcome. But nobody was paying attention to the then mayor because they weren't supportive. So I had to go over, as is my wont, to take care of whoever needs you. So
I was really hoping those first words were going to be, "Man, you're smoking hot."
No.
You guys went on a honeymoon that some would describe as unusual to the Soviet Union.
Mm-hmm.
Your husband, in fact, later described it as a strange experience.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about the honeymoon and why it was so strange.
Well, we went to the Soviet Union to establish a sister city relationship with Yaroslavl, Russia.
What year was that?
That was 1988. He asked me to marry him in March, and I said, when? And we said, well, we really don't have any other time. We're going on this diplomatic mission to do a sister city with Yaroslavl, and we don't have any other time that we can take off. So we picked our date, realizing we were going to have to be marching, heading the Memorial Day parade on the 29th, and traveling to Russia on the 29th in the afternoon. So on the 28th, we said, okay, May 28th it is. So our wedding was determined by that, but it was fun. We had 10 people with us, and just had a wonderful time. But it was not your normal honeymoon. It was really educational and wonderful.
What time of year was it?
May.
It was in May. So you had springtime in the former Soviet Union.
Yes, and Yaroslavl is quite wonderful. The sister city is still going on. People, there have been doctors and hospitals, all these different relationships that we've continued over the years.
We're married to a United States Senator. You still are, but now he's a little bit more famous than he was before. How has the life of the Sanders family changed in the last couple months?
It's amazing. You can't walk down the street. I mean, in Vermont, people are so used to seeing us, it's fine, and they're all, supportive. But we just walk down New York, and people are turning around and stopping and asking for selfies. That's the hardest thing. We can't get any alone time.
A lot of upside to people being so nice and supportive and all that. What are some of the downsides of this newfound life that you have?
Just the lack of privacy, but really the upsides far outweigh the downsides. I mean, we're meeting wonderful people. They're coming up and they're saying, we're supporting you because of this, or you're speaking to my issue. Thank you for running. That's one of the things that's been really nice to see, that people aren't just interested in the celebrity or, oh, that person's on TV. It's, I love what you're saying about college tuition. I love what you're saying about health care, and then telling us personal stories. And I mean, I'd really like to get to know all these people. So it's wonderful.
I wonder, your husband is obviously very passionate and very principled and very committed to his passion and his principles. He talks about issues, he talks about his ideology, he talks about his beliefs. He doesn't talk that much about himself when he's out on the campaign trail. Presumably there's a side of Bernie Sanders that you see that the public doesn't see very much. Would you like for the public to be able to see more of the Bernie that you know?
I would. On the other hand, I think that he has limited amounts of time to talk about the issues that are so important, and that's why he's running for president, not because he's a wonderful person or a loving father or grandfather and that he loves to have fun and he loves music, but hopefully they will get to see more of that as time goes on. I think it is happening as more and more media interest is taking place, that he's being able to talk a little bit more instead of saying, okay, I have this one time to talk about issues. He's been pretty funny with you.
We've sparred with him on this because we're so impressed by his real focus on issues. I mean, it's great for the country to have a presidential candidate, that discipline to say, I don't care about the soap opera and the hype and the politics. It's incredible. Regardless of what you think of his positions, that's great. And his critique of the media is pretty darn good, too. On the other hand, don't you want to know your political leaders? Don't you want to know what kind of music they like, what their families like? Isn't that part of electing a leader and understanding who might lead us?
I tell him that. Yeah. And then he says, he gives me the same face that he gives you. But
so you've tried to convince him?
I have. I've always been the one that kind of made that
happen. What's like an anecdote or a trait of his that you think, God, I wish everybody in the country knew that? It's got nothing to do with issues, but just about him.
Well, I mean, he loves music, and he's just very sincere, and when he's not talking about the issues and he's with seniors, for instance, in Vermont, he's very there. He's very present. He's listening to them and enjoying what they're telling him. He is thinking in the back of his mind what else has to happen, but, he does a Christmas party every year, a holiday party. He has
We're
not
coming
missed.
To that.
Good. For seniors, and then there's one that he ran his first campaign for mayor against condominium complex, a luxury condominium complex on the waterfront. He wanted a people-oriented waterfront. The developer of that has become a very, very good friend. He's a Republican. You know, we've never asked him for any donations or anything, but he's become a very good friend. And he started with us 35 years ago to have a Christmas party or a holiday party for low-income families, and then moved to have holiday parties for veterans when Bernie was on the Veterans Committee. And he has not missed that. In all those years. He has a crazy schedule, but he doesn't miss that.
We only have a little tiny bit of time left. I want to ask you two quick questions. Whose imitation do you like better? His of Larry David, that he did on the show, or Larry David of him?
I think Larry David was really good. Yes.
Okay, the second imitation that we have seen him do many times now is his monster imitation that he does for his grandchildren.
Yes, yes.
Do you do a monster imitation?
I do not. I do not.
Do you do any imitations for your grandchildren?
I don't do imitations. I read to them. I play Legos with them. He teaches them chess, all of them. He teaches them baseball and soccer as well. That's something that your viewers wouldn't know, but that is something that happens every time he's home. They come running out.
I now have this really deep desire to take Bernie Sanders with me to the World Series here with the Mets.
Wait, you have to take me.
I'm taking you all. Well, maybe you and I should just go. We'll leave him behind. Jane O'Meara Sanders, you're fantastic. Thank you. When we come back, what 3 words best describe Hillary Clinton among Iowa voters? We'll give you the answers when we're back.
Experienced, vibrant, and educated.
Dynamic, beautiful, electable.
Resilient, tough, motivated.
She's beautiful, she's the future, and she's Madam President.
Strong, independent, and intelligent.
Good, strong, and determined.
That's what we got when we asked Iowa voters and one very famous non-Iowa voter at Saturday's Jefferson Jackson dinner in Des Moines to give us 3 words to describe Hillary Clinton. Joining us now to talk about the Clintons and Iowa is Jeff Link. He is of Link Strategies, a longtime Democratic strategist in Iowa, worked with Barack Obama's team in 2008, and is an outside advisor to Obama-Biden 2012. Jeff, thanks for joining us.
Great, thanks for having me.
So Bill Clinton and Katy Perry both appeared alongside Hillary Clinton on Saturday, and Bill Clinton, to some of our ears and eyes, was maybe not at the top of his game.
I won't be surprised in Iowa if you see some Republican farmers from New York show up here. One of them called me just the other day, said, I want to go back. He said, all I know is I'm not sure what party I'm in anymore, because when she was a senator, she is the only person who ever did anything for our farmers.
Mr. President, were you rusty or were you good?
I hope both.
Was it fun?
Yeah. It was nice.
All right, later I also talked to him about how selfies have changed politics and his life on the rope line. You can see that right now on BloombergPolitics.com. But, Jeff, let me ask you about Bill Clinton. Even Bill Clinton, even rusty, is probably 10 times better than most. How much can he help his wife on the ground in Iowa over the next couple months?
Well, he's very popular in the state. He has always been had a lot of fans in the state of Iowa, particularly among the Democrats, and I think he's going to be a huge asset for her.
You saw what Barack Obama's team built in terms of the caucus in 2008, which was unprecedented. Hillary Clinton's team now, 8 years later, everybody says is much better than it was 8 years ago. Assess the relative strengths of the Clinton ground game, the Sanders ground game, and the O'Malley ground game currently in Iowa.
Well, I think Saturday night was an important test of that ground game, and I think as people compared 2008 to Saturday night, it was clear that the Clinton campaign has sort of upped their performance, and it was really her room on Saturday night in Des Moines. So I think from that standpoint, you can't really get a true assessment except looking at these sort of interim stops to compare the campaigns. But I think, you know, she showed she was at the top of the game certainly Saturday. But look, these Sanders people, they came on buses. It takes a certain level of organization to fill up buses, make sure they get there on time. Some people thought they might have left a little early since a bunch of people left while the secretary was still speaking. But you know, I wouldn't short sell the ground game that Sanders has built either. And there's definitely a lot of enthusiasm for Sanders. And the other thing, a lot of people try and skip over Martin O'Malley, but he had a pretty strong group that was there as well. I happened to be sitting in that corner of the room, and you know, they were very enthusiastic.
Fill in the blank. The best reason to say that Bernie Sanders might win the Iowa caucuses is blank.
Energy. Momentum and energy at the end of a caucus really matters. Ask Rick Santorum. You know, I think we were talking a lot about how, you know, this JJ compared a little bit to 2000. And, you know, Bill Bradley had all the energy in the world going into that 1999 JJ. And Gore really sort of turned it that evening. It wasn't as palpable that night, but it really started to turn the whole dialogue around. And so that's why I think energy is the most important for any candidate at the end of a caucus.
Again, we always gotta go back to 2008 again. One of the things, in addition to organizing the caucus so well, that Obama did was expand them. 230,000 people who showed up that night, more by far than any had ever turned out for a Democratic or a Republican caucus. What's your best guess, given what you can see right now, as to what the numbers might be like come February 1st?
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough to reach the 2008 numbers, just because it was twice what we'd ever seen before. But I think we're going to get somewhere close to that range, actually. I mean, I was quite surprised at the viewership of the first Democratic debate, set new records. So I think there's genuine enthusiasm.
Is Sanders finding and reaching new people? Are people engaged in Democratic politics in Iowa who haven't caucused in the past because of him?
I think there are new people that are joining in that Sanders effort.
It seemed like just looking at that room, and I know the Sanders people felt that, a lot of those people who were there are not necessarily people who would normally come out for anybody else other than Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, and you know, we have that every cycle in Iowa. I mean, we always talk about how there's this hardcore group of caucus attenders, but in that hardcore group, every single cycle, about 10 or 12% are people who just get enthused about a candidate who've never done anything like it before, some of whom don't ever do it again. But, you know, it's kind of a small group, but there's always that 10 or 12% that's just brand new to the process.
Yep. Jeff Link, unaffiliated, not endorsed yet in this race, but representing all Iowa Democrats. Come and joining us here from Des Moines. Jeff, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be right back after this.
You know what's legal in Colorado? Free speech, snowboarding, and smoking weed. On Wednesday, we'll be partaking in at least 2 of those activities when we're live from Boulder for the 3rd Republican debate. Set your DVR and charge up your vape, and we'll see you then.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. Sayonara.